Well, good morning. We are going to the garden. We haven't been out there yet this year, I don't think. It has been a really strange weather year, bug year. I have been just covered in mosquitoes. I know there are lots of places in the country that have had like no bugs at all. I haven't had any bees, but my gosh, I've got more mosquitoes than you could shake a stick at. So I have not spent a ton of time out here. When I do, I come out every single morning and harvest, but I don't spend a lot of time tending to the garden or anything else because I get eaten alive. So we're going to see if we can manage to make it through today. So what you're going to see in my garden is a lot of disease and a lot of production still coming in. I'm really shocked at how much production I still have coming in. It is late September as I'm filming this, and my goodness, I shouldn't have any tomatoes left, but I do. I still have lots of tomatoes coming in. So we'll take a look at that. I also want to talk to you about my beds and what's going on there and what my plans are for fall and going forward from here. I also want to show you the lettuce I have going downstairs. That's making good progress. And then let's see if you can see this here. Here we go. These are my greens I'm going to be putting into the garden here in the next week or so. I just brought them up from the grow room last night, and they're getting a little overcast sun today here on the porch, and will for the next 2 or 3 days. We have mostly rain coming up. So that will allow them to adjust, and then hopefully I can get them in the garden. I don't know, maybe over the weekend. We'll have to see. All right, let's go see what's going on out here. First thing I want to show you back here is this trellis. Now on the back side of this trellis, I have 2 brandy boys, which are hybrid indeterminates, and 1 pineapple, which is an heirloom indeterminate. So they have come up and over, and you can see all of these bags on here are tomatoes that are still ripening. This is my second flush, I guess, second big flush of tomatoes. And you can see I have so many left to come, and I'll show you the back side of this as well. So I have most of them in these organza bags until I ran out of organza bags, because I do have something nibbling on all of my produce. I don't know exactly what that is. Here's one that is a little farther along in the ripening process. I picked several this morning, but I just couldn't be any happier. So those are 2 varieties I will always grow. Then I have some peppers in front. This is a tough spot for the peppers. One, because they get overtaken, from the tomatoes from the other side, but also because during the big heat of summer, the peppers just get fried. So these have not done quite as well as I'd like on this side of the trellis. Let's go look at the other side first, and then I'll show you my big pepper bed. So here look how bad these plants look. These are those 3 tomato plants I just told you about. They look horrible, and look at all that disease. Yet, there are tomatoes, good-sized tomatoes, everywhere. So I couldn't be happier with those, and I will always grow those, I'm pretty sure. We love those for our big tomato sandwiches. Okay, so this bed, look at this bed, it is completely falling apart. We moved here in 2021, so this garden went in September, October 2021, and it's just completely fallen apart. I did not want to treat the wood, and here it is. We've replaced boards here and there along the way. You can see that whole end has been replaced there. But we have just gotten a new solution to the garden, and we'll be putting that in over the winter. As much as I love the look of the wood, this is not something I want to deal with, year after year, right? You can see even on this tomato bed we were just looking at, that one's falling apart. This one is really the worst. And this is my most productive pepper bed. This one is just crazy. So last year, you might remember that I told you I was going to overwinter some peppers, and I did. And I have several of those peppers in this bed. I have a couple of those peppers in this bed, and I am definitely going to do that again. I was out here yesterday and picked out the plants that I am going to try to overwinter. I have 10 of them. So I don't know, it was pretty crowded last year with 8 or 9 of them, but I'm going to try for 10 this year just because these plants have been so fantastic and they still look so healthy, unlike my poor tomatoes that look terrible. But these have just been fantastic. Look, I even have new peppers coming in down there. So I am thrilled with these. I've added a little more fertilizer, hopes that I can get these to go ahead and ripen pretty quickly. We're about a month out from our average first frost date, so we'll see about that. The other thing we should talk about with wood is my herb beds. You might remember I have 2 of these, or had 2 of these, one on each end of the garden. This one is holding up okay. You can see it's not looking fantastic right down there in the bottom. But the other one completely collapsed. So we got rid of that. So I'm down to just this one herb bed, which has been okay, given how many herbs I'm able to grow in here. Sage has been great. This is summer savory. I planted this, I think last year, didn't really know what to do with it. It came back, still don't know what to do with it, but it's taken up a lot of space for something I don't know what to do with. So if you got some thoughts on that, let me know. I have been freeze drying herbs as quickly as I possibly can. I did a big harvest of basil this morning. Like that's why I'm out here. I only got 4 trays worth of the freeze dryer, so I'm going to try to grab some rosemary or some thyme or some oregano or something like that to fill it out. The sage is looking good. This sage plant has been in here for 4 years, I guess. I need to do a big clean out on it, get rid of the dead wood here. See, this is my biggest rosemary plant. I went ahead and took it out of the herb bed to give it a little more room to see if I could do a better job with it this year. This one I'm so happy with. Now this one I bought as a start, so it was pretty decent size. It was probably in maybe a half-gallon pot when I got it, and it has really loved being in this corner of the bed right here. So I'm going to take some from that today. I may go ahead and do some cuttings and get those started as well, put those inside just in case this one does not come back for me. It should, in my climate it should, but who knows with the weather this year. Now this one I'm really proud of, because this one I started from seed, not from a cutting, but I started it from seed. Rosemary is hard to get anything to go on from seed, but this one has done just great. This side of the garden is a little sadder looking. That is a sunflower that was stunningly beautiful most of the summer. Decided to croak 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I just haven't gotten it out yet because the mosquitoes have been terrible. You can see the disease in the tomatoes, but I don't know if you can see it from here or not, but there are still a lot of tomatoes in there ripening. So I have bags on as many of those as I can. I have another bed falling apart, and yet I have a ton of peppers in that bed, and they're probably, I don't know, 25 peppers in that bed in some stage of ripening. My aromas are in those back 2 beds. They're looking really rough right now. So I don't know how many more I'm going to get of those. I planted a couple, you can see like this one right here, a couple over here. These were just aroma variety that I had in my seed collection. And I started those and put them in, I think July 1st. And then we ended up with, gosh, I don't know, at least a month, maybe even 5 or 6 weeks of 90-degree days. And they were just, I don't know, they certainly did not reach their full potential. So I don't know that was the best idea, and I don't really expect anything from those anymore. But I do, particularly in that back bed, back there, I think, back there, did not get nearly as much sunlight as the others, and so while I have a lot of green tomatoes on there, nothing much has ripened yet. So I'm hoping that those are going to come along and do a good job ripening. So right here is my, can you see that? Right over there. That trellis is my cherry tomato trellis. And it has not done as well as it usually does this year, because look at all the cover, all the shade it now gets. So I'm going to have to do something about that next year. I'll have to do something about that. I may, since we're going to replace these beds, I may move the trellis down and put it between these two beds instead. Give it a little more sun. It has a lot of cherry tomatoes on it. It has all summer, but it just is taking them so long to ripen. And they were not, by a long shot, my first tomatoes to ripen this year, which is crazy. They're always first, always. Okay, let's make one quick stop at the Poblanos here. I had mentioned in a video, I don't know, a month or so ago, that I had been looking for a Poblano plant that really gave me some decent production. And I hadn't found it yet at the time. Well, now I think I've found it. I mean, look at this. I've never had this much production from a Poblano pepper. So my plan for these peppers was to make a green enchilada sauce, but I'm having a heck of a time finding tomatillos this year. We were in Atlanta last week and there's a huge international market there, and I always can get tons of tomatillos and, you know, all of that kind of stuff there. They looked horrible. They had some, they were tiny, they were spotted, it was just, they just looked horrible. So I don't know that I'm going to get to that today, but I will get these peppers roasted and skinned and chopped up for the freezer so that they will be there if I find something else to do with them other than just use them in cooking. So yeah, this bed doesn't look great, but these 4 Roma plants produced a ton this year. These 4 Roma plants, I'm hoping at some point in the year I'll be able to say that they have produced a ton too. But right now I just don't have much ripe from them. You know, the tomatoes themselves, they look good, but they're just green. So I know what you're thinking now is, well, Carter, you can't find tomatillos, so use your green tomatoes. Well, I'm not sure that's really what I wanted in an enchilada sauce. That's what I used for my salsa verde, is green tomatoes. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. There's another look at that poor, sad trellis of cherry tomatoes. It did hold off on disease longer than much of the other tomatoes, but gosh, not looking fantastic. This bed looks ridiculous. I've got a few lone tomatoes. I'm just waiting. That one I can probably go ahead and pick, and then I can pull that plant. I've got one over there I can probably pick and pull that plant. So I think I'll do that probably this week. And then I think that these 4 beds here I will cover in greens, both things like the lettuces I showed you before, and there's some cabbages in there as well where I want big heads of things. I think I'll put those in, and then I'll also do kind of an edible cover crop like I did last year. So I'll do cilantro and arugula and mustard and parsley and all kinds of things like that in these beds, and just let that roll through the winter. Some of it'll die off, and that's fine too. I'll do another round in the spring before it's time to plant. And then in these beds over here, that looks so sad. These beds over here, I think I'm just going to cover them with a leaf mulch that has been sitting in my grow room for, gosh, I don't know. Ask my husband. I think he's been tracking the daily time it's been sitting there waiting for me to do something with. So I kept it out instead of putting it in the compost pile, thinking I would use it as a mulch. But honestly, you know, mulch is tough with the type of irrigation system I have here, because it has to go, you can see this. There's my, right there is my irrigation system. So it just kind of spews out water rather than being a drip system that would go underneath the mulch. This would have to go over the mulch and through it. So I don't know. Boy, this is a sad looking bed as I'm down here. I have a couple of zinnias finally coming back. Every zinnia in this bed self-seeded, and then a deer or something came and decapitated every one of them. You can see where this one was decapitated right there, and it's just now trying to put out a flower. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's go take a look at the grow room. Okay, here are those bags of leaf mulch. was telling you about. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So I'm thinking that should fill up my beds for me, those 4 beds on the other side. Okay, this is how our indoor lettuce is looking. So it's coming along just fine. I will probably up pot these here in the next week or so. I probably should have up potted these. These are still in their little tiny trays here. I probably should have up potted those. But I'll wait and see what else I need, if anything, from for the garden. So a whole bunch of lettuce. This will be kind of a cut and come again style lettuce, whereas outside I'm hoping to grow heads if I have enough time and weather, and if the bunny is not too hungry, I may get some heads of lettuce. These are 2 trays of what start as microgreens, and we kind of eat them all the way through the baby green stage. So this is arugula here, and in the back there is kale. And we have been eating on these for quite some time. Let me see what I started these. Oops, you can't see that at all. Okay, I started these August 17. So we've been eating on them for a month at this point. A little over a month at this point. So I'm excited to have lettuce back in here. I did have a bag of soil that was heavily contaminated with fruit fly larvae, and so I had a big issue with that down here. Not something I usually struggle with too much, but I have these, you know, little yellow sticky things all over the place, and they have captured them for the most part and have done a much better job. I just saw one flying in front of the camera. I don't know if you could see it or not, but anyway, that was kind of brutal. So I did have all production out of the grow room for probably 6 or 8 weeks while I dealt with that. So now it's good to be back. Good to be back in lettuce. It's not quite ready to harvest yet, but some of these are getting there. You know, some of these are harvestable leaves for sure. I'd have to look at the size of the plant to make sure it would have enough left, but I think that those are going to be ready to go here soon. It is just so nice out here today. If it weren't for the darn mosquitoes, I would be out here all day. Anyway, I have collected my additional herbs. That should fill up another tray on the freeze dryer. I think I'm going to root some of the rosemary. I took it from a couple different plants out there, and I think I'll go ahead and root some of that and then freeze dry the rest. I got sage. Not that I don't have plenty of sage freeze dried right now. I have plenty of basil freeze dried right now too, but I keep doing that because I want the basil to keep going. So, you know, you have to continually harvest that in order to keep it going. So I'm going to go ahead and take some sage, and then I grabbed a bunch of oregano, a whole bunch of oregano, to fill up the rest of the tray. So I'll be excited to have those. I am running low on oregano, so I'll do that. You know, thyme, I have so much thyme out here, T-H-Y-M-E, but that is such a pain in the tuchus to either dehydrate or freeze dry, getting it off those stems. I don't know, you know, when you freeze dry them or dehydrate them on the stem gets so brittle, that ends up in my spice jar, and that's not what I want. But taking those little thyme leaves off, oh my goodness. Enough to fill up anything, right? I mean, easy enough to do a handful of thyme sprigs. That's not a problem at all, and I do that all the time fresh. However, to do enough to have any impact on a jar whatsoever, that is a lot of stripping thyme leaves. So if you have a quick and easy way to do that, there must be something I could pull it through without breaking the stem. I don't know, give that one some thought. I would appreciate that. And the summer savory, I did not harvest any of that, again, because I don't know what the heck to do with it. So if you have some ideas of what to do with that, or, you know, maybe there is nothing to do with that, and your best advice is to just pull it out and give that space to something else next year. So I'm open to all suggestions on that. I'm excited about how my garden is going to look next year, I think. My plan this year, I don't know, it was a strange plan, different than anything I've ever done before, but it really did serve me well. So it started this time last year when I sowed the edible cover crop, and that just gave me production in at least a couple of the beds all winter long. And then I did another sowing of, you know, stuff like the cilantro and arugula and mustard. So that mosquito's going after me right now. I did another sowing of that very early this spring, and so I got more harvest off of that. So I have a ton of cilantro. I got a ton of greens freeze dried, so I was really happy with that. Kale was great this year. So I got a ton of production in a time period when I wouldn't ordinarily have great production. So that was terrific. And then the thing that happened this spring, we were really, really busy, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to narrow down what I do to the things that are most important for the way we eat. And for us, that's tomatoes and peppers. Now, you saw I threw some onions in the ground because those are super important as well. However, I didn't do a very good job with those, or the weather didn't cooperate, or whatever it is. I can blame it on a lot of things, but basically my onion harvest gave me one batch of onion jam and a few other little scragglers, and that was about it. So that was kind of disappointing. I may try onions again next year. I may not. I don't know. That's one of those things that they could take up so much room. Part of my issue is that I hate to give them the best beds in terms of sunlight because I'm starting to get limited with all these trees. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about onions right now. We didn't do potatoes. I did have a few volunteers and we enjoyed those. They did well. But primarily I planted tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. And my garden produced like mad. And you can see it's still coming in. It looks terrible. It looks absolutely horrible. But I don't know. It really met our needs this year. So that, I think, is a lesson I'm going to take with me into this coming year as well. And I will probably keep my focus narrow. And I will certainly work on some cold weather growing as well in the form of cover crops and lettuce. Get back to growing, you know, my lettuce downstairs now that I've gotten rid of mostly the little gnat issues. So I'm excited about it. And I'm also excited about the new beds that we have going in. So I don't know when you'll get to see those. Something my husband thinks he wants to do, or he wants us to do by ourselves. Like, no. No, dude, there are plenty of teenagers here in this neighborhood that, you know, we could pay to put these in, and it would be good for them, it would be good for us, but no, he thinks he wants to try this. So we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much for spending the day with me. I'm glad we got out to the garden, even though it doesn't look so pretty. It is, you know, as I said on the thumbnail for this one, it is decrepit and it's diseased and it's very tired, but it is just producing like crazy, and for that I'm ever so grateful. So I hope you have a great week. I hope your garden has served you well this year, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.